he's in and out. He sent some email to me saying that his mom died or something bad happened. He had to take care of his mom or something. I don't know, something bad. It was something bad. I don't know. I can't remember. I'd have to look at the email. Yeah, he does one of those things. He posts everything each day. He posts something about it. Or not really. He posts something about it. Was okay. Yeah, I think so. Good evening, everybody. This is Divided We Stand on YouTube and Facebook. If you're unfamiliar with this channel, we ask that you subscribe. We do not monetize anything. Just hit the subscribe button and the bell, and that way you'll be notified if any video comes up. If you're on Facebook, we ask that you check out our Facebook group page. We have a fairly popular page. You do have to agree to a few rules, but that shouldn't be any big deal. We're all on the same team, more or less. So we ask you to become a part of this commiserating team called the Divided We Stand group. So thank you. Thank you. And again, we are not monetized. We're not asking for anything, nothing from you. You don't need to give us anything. And that shows you our dedication or ignorance or whatever you want to call it. We don't trust anybody with a tie and a suit. I'm okay today, I guess. Well, again, it's Saturday night. It's the 20th of January in snowy Bridge, New Jersey, and I'm sure in Arlington, Virginia, as we say hello to my co-host and good friend, David Price. Dave, how is it down there in Arlington?
It's cold. Not as cold as it is in other parts of the country, but it's still plenty cold here. We got snow, but not a tremendous amount. But as, I don't know if you realize it, but in D.C., the mere threat of snow causes closing. So
right.
It's been an interesting time.
It seems to be an American thing.
Yeah, it's
the threat of any kind of anything.
But more so, I think, here it's kind of a running joke because I don't know, Brian, question, I was a teacher, an educator. And I did other positions in education, but for what, 30 years, I guess. And my favorite time off, I don't know if you were at Bridgeton then or where it was. Bridgeton High School was an emergency evacuation zone. And there was a threat of a hurricane coming, and it was the beginning of school. So we only were going to go Thursday and Friday, and they canceled both days, and we got a paycheck. That was like my favorite time ever.
Right. So
other places closed too, but DC, both government and schools and everything, to me, it doesn't warrant risking one life, of course. But, sometimes, I don't know that I would, I don't know if I would cancel. So are things in your neck of the woods there?
Well,
used to be my neck of the woods.
I would say my trip outside today, I would say we had around 6 inches of snow, maybe 7.
Really?
Yeah.
We didn't have.
At first, I didn't think it was going to build up. I thought, well, this is only going to be a couple of inches at maximum. But then we had some bursts of snow twice, I think, yesterday. And toward the end, it started piling up. So we had a nice... I don't think we've had this kind of snow for 3 or 4 years. And it was very soft snow, and it was very beautiful. There wasn't a lot of wind, and of course it's very cold right now. It must be like 20, 25 degrees the most. I don't know what it is, but it's cold. But it's not really, really windy, and The strange thing is, as most of you probably know, especially if you're into the climate, it's going to get really warm next week across most of the country. So
Well,
all
I
those
feel
who thought, well, maybe this is going back to normal, we're not.
no, we're far from normal in so many ways. It's not even funny, although I'm laughing. That's going to be, sometimes you get depressed when you look at the world situations and the political situations in America. Sometimes it's just so absurd you have to laugh, and sometimes you feel like crying, and then sometimes you just feel like, wow, we really did step into the twilight zone.
Right.
Um, so I don't know what you get us started tonight. What you got on your mind?
Dave, I want to talk about Bill Maher's new rules from last night. Now, I told you before the show, I fell asleep long before Bill Maher was on. I just, for some reason, on Friday nights have a tough time staying awake, and for good reason. I'm just tired during the week. And
Have you tried methamphetamine,
no, I don't want to
cocaine,
that. No, no.
uppers?
Maybe almond milk. Will that work?
No.
No, no. You want me to go the opposite way, right? No, I don't know. But in any case, I did watch his rules this morning, and I think it better defined the problem that we have across the country, the political divide, as we've been talking about, Democrats versus Republican, conservatives versus liberal. And I'll let Bill Maher speak for himself. I'll show you new rules, and then when we come back,
Okay.
we'll comment on it. We'll have the audience comment too. So remember, and that is for something for everybody out there to know that we're not, it's just not Dave and I speaking up here. We do want to interact with everybody. That's the whole point of the show. And don't forget, we've got tens and tens of viewers out there. So let's all take part. But there's a good thing. Dave, you know very, very well. If we had 5,000 people watching, there's no way you'd be able to follow the chat, and nobody would be able to get a word in edgewise. So here we go. Bill Maher, new rules. All right, let me get back to no echo. All right. So it seems as though, at least in my opinion, he has a point. Now, of course, he throws in a lot of his jokes. But do you have a sense, then, Dave, after watching that there is a bit of truth to this, that at this time and point in this country, things are fucking nuts, are crazy. There's just no sensibility anymore. There's never, a moderate center anymore that can center the country. And I blame most of this on the right. I don't think that it's a 50-50 thing. It's more, 90-10. But I do have this feeling that there's a certain insanity in our lives. Is that wrong to say?
Oh, absolutely wrong to say. This is the sanest America's ever been, Brian. No, of course. Again, as I've spoken in the past, I not blame. That's not the proper word. I'll find the proper word at some point. But social media has a lot to do with this, okay? We now know immediately how crazy people are, okay? Because they post it. And of course, the problem becomes that, we talk about this 50-50 America. I don't buy that. I buy a third, and a third, give or take a few. And of course, you have a spokesman for crazy, which is Donald Trump. But the sad thing is that while we would label him crazy, his supporters believe that he was put here by God to save America. And then we start. One of the craziest things I saw this week online, it's not new, but there was obviously a right wing whack job who postulated that Joe Biden will be replaced with Michael Obama. Do you know Michael Obama?
Is he a brother of
No,
Barack?
no. According to this report, and the group's report was Michael Obama is actually Michelle Obama because he has had a sex change operation. There's just so
Is this
much
a
wrong.
Q theory of some
No,
sort?
this is a another right wing postulation of what is going to happen. That's another thing I think too. I fault the supposed regular media for first of all, they didn't know how to cover Donald Trump. I mean, I wouldn't have known it. I was a reporter for more than a decade at first. I think they took it like most Americans did, or many Americans did, I should say most, that there was no chance of him being president, so let's go along for the ride. And what Donald Trump was able to do just by being Donald Trump was to hone in on this feeling of America and get enough support to be president once, to have 74 million people vote for him a second time.
Second time,
And
right?
and now, as Bill Maher expressed, and I think most people are saying, he's leading, he's certainly going to win the Republican nomination. I mean, that's a given. In Iowa, yes, he only got 51% of the vote. That was 30 points more than anybody else. The Republican primary will be over unless somehow, and I don't see how it happens, unless Nikki Haley could defeat Donald Trump on Tuesday, right? It's the New Hampshire primary. That's not going to happen.
And then what does she do after that? If she can't win New Hampshire or South
well,
Carolina.
everybody else has dropped out. Mr. Scott, who was the lone African American running on the Republican
Well,
side.
he's weird too.
Well, yeah. He falls into the same category as Lindsey Graham. In fact, it's interesting. Again, I'm going to do what I complain about. But ever since Lindsey Graham has pretty much been in office, there's been allegations of that he's gay. Who cares? The only thing I always wonder, about is some of the legislation that he's supported has been anti-gay. If you're gay, I don't think you should do that. And there's also a thing that Mr. Scott. Now the problem becomes because neither one of them are married. I mean, you don't know what's going on. But Mr. Scott is just to me is an anomaly because he's a black Republican. I don't quite get that. Okay, but he got enough votes in South Carolina to be a senator. My point is, after New Hampshire comes South Carolina. I think Nikki Haley will stay in until then. But if she can't win there, that's a state where she was governor. And I don't think she can. I really don't think she can. So I agree with Bill Maher that we're crazy. I agree with you, Brian. I don't think it's a 50-50 crazy on the left or the right.
No doubt about that.
I think, I even sometimes, the right answer can be the wrong answer. The two college presidents, I kind of understood what they were saying. They didn't say it well, but I'm kind of a believer that everything is in context. Now, if you say, kill all the Jews, no, that's wrong, right? Obviously. The problem becomes that so much of free speech is in context. And people don't understand free speech, Brian. They really don't. You don't have free speech. I don't have free speech. Americans don't have free speech. What we have is free to speak ill of the government. That's really what we have. I assume it might still be effective.
And understanding that and understanding what you are saying and the ramifications of what you're saying.
Correct. So you don't really have,
Right.
It's just the government can't do it, but somebody else can. Like, they talk about cancel culture. Well, certainly the universities were within their purview, both MIT and Harvard. But of course, then the rallying cry becomes, well, they were women. That is true. And one was a black woman. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about a black woman who's in a little bit of trouble over Trump. But I think Bill Maher, first of all, is a comedian. He's got his own thing. The most trusted man in America. No, no way, Bill Maher. No, you're not. I think that's part of the problem. I don't know. Who would you say? There's a good question. Who do you think is the most trusted person in America right now?
Well, it certainly wouldn't from the media, because when we're talking about Walter Cronkite, that was a time when everybody watched the news, and it was not partisan. So now we're so balkanized that it seems like each team has their most trusted person. So this is why I think someone like Bill Maher, with that poll, he is starting to get some people on the right to like him. And then you have moderates like myself, moderate to liberal Democrats like myself, who can accept him. And I don't accept everything he says, of course, but in general, he's fairly reasonable. I mean, I didn't think that joke about the mask was very good because,
no, I thought that was on for. I thought that was horrid. I've got to say.
No, because
I understand that
egotistical, and COVID destroyed his show, in his opinion, and he wanted.
No, he destroyed his show.
Well, that may be the case, but he was so pissed off about what happened. And then he tears apart anybody. By the way, if he wants to wear a fucking mask, excuse me for getting upset, because I wear a mask every day in school. I'm not only protecting my students, but I'm protecting myself, not from COVID. It's not only from COVID, I should say. It's from everything else. I've realized the value of that mask, and I haven't been sick ever since I put that mask on, knock wood. I prefer to wear it because I feel secure with it. And that's why I wear it.
Do you wear it in the car?
I have worn it by accident in the car.
Right.
But no, I take it. No. In fact, what I do is I will when I have my hand sanitizer in the car, when I am ready to take it off, I'll put the hand sanitizer on, I take it off, and that's that. But there have been a few times, like when it's really cold, I actually like the mask because it's somewhat warm. So I really like it, and in a way, I think I'm one of the few teachers. I know I'm 3 years in a row with perfect attendance, and I don't give a shit that they give, a certificate or whatever it is they give us. But, not only do I not like having to make sub-plans, but I like being there for those kids, because I know when I'm not there, not to put the substitutes down, problems occur. Rarely does any of the work get done. I'm not blaming the substitute. It's just the nature of the students. Oh, we have a sub, and that's that. We all know, you and I both sub, Dave, and we know that it was really like pulling teeth. So being there, and it has an effect on some of my students. I have a few students who actually listen to me. I tell them why I wear the mask, and I have around 1 or 2 students who still wear a mask in the classroom, which is a rarity, but some do. And I think that there is a certain amount of influence. I mean, it's small, but if I have 6 kids who wear a mask because I wear a mask, then I think that it says something. And those kids, if they're doing it right, they shouldn't get sick. That mask is very, very helpful. It might be a pain in the ass, but for Bill Maher to be upset at that, I knew immediately that he's had a grudge for 2 years.
Well,
with the COVID
that's
thing.
that.
And
that's
I have
my
a problem
point.
with it. But there's some things about Bill Maher that I really like. I think he's intelligent. I think he makes sense for the most part. I just don't like when his ego gets involved.
And see, I've always felt that Bill Maher always got his ego involved. I've
and
never
sexist in a certain way.
It's just he's like that kid to me. It's always been that kid that I know everything and listen to me. That's how he strikes me. Now, maybe that's unfair.
Well, he is intelligent. We'll say that. I mean, he is intelligent.
I really haven't watched him enough.
I've seen him debating with people, and aside from Christopher Hitchens and Sam Harris, I think he has a pretty easy time with most of the guests that he has on. Maybe it's the choice of guests.
Well, I think
but he
that would be.
well.
Yeah, I think that's part of it too. And remember, it's all show business. Okay, it's all show business. Now, unfortunately, politics shouldn't be show business, and it's all show business. Okay, Donald Trump is no different as president as he was from running The Apprentice.
Correct.
When he was there. Joe Biden is a throwback to another time when there were chances of compromise. I was thinking, well, let me get back to the question.
And as you
So
say, Dave, and there you go. I mean, what you just said in the last sentence, it nails it. Now it's entertainment. Ever since that 2015 debate where he destroyed everybody, made everybody laugh, including you and me.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Joe Biden, who's old school, and he doesn't know how to deal with this because he's not an entertainer.
Right. And that's absolutely correct. You still didn't answer my question. You answered it, but indirectly. So who are you going to name as your most trusted person?
Oh, right, right.
Yeah.
Well, I certainly can't say a dead person. Okay, so that's
who would you?
Yeah, you could. Christopher Hitchens.
Okay.
I have to think of the first person who comes to mind because that's probably the person whom I think.
I know I have mine, but if you want me to name mine first,
sure, go ahead.
Somebody I would believe, Dolly Parton. She is in show business,
right?
But I think she speaks from the heart. She one of the things that I look for in people is a sense of humor. She has one, but it's self-deprecating. She makes fun of her breasts as big as they are. And I mean, she's just done so much good. And I think that if I had to, now I don't know that makes her. I'm not saying I want her to be president or anything. I'm just saying somebody that I would trust would be that. I was going to.
Well, there's only one person I can think of right now. The first person that came to my head right now is Lawrence O'Donnell.
Okay. And of course,
I could trust him.
Right.
Just that's a person I could trust. If he says, I'm going to be here at 10 o'clock, right, he'll be there at 10 o'clock.
And of course, immediately, that 1/3 on the right, he'd be one of the last people.
Right. They wouldn't trust him. They see him as a Tucker Carlson.
A couple things I think about, I will be in March, I will be 72 years old. I'm 71 now. So I've been around for a while. And, I think back to that Walter Cronkite time. And then on NBC, it was Huntley Brinkley. And ABC had nobody. They were like the distant running, way behind the front of the pack. But basically, if you watch those news shows, they were pretty much the same, right?
Right.
In terms of there was a definition of news that was different than a definition of entertainment. That was different than this modern age of influencers. Bill Maher brought up Taylor Swift. There's a huge movement now to get her out of football. And I was wondering if she really is gay. Did anybody ask Jason Kelsey? Who's
right.
And Taylor Swift is talented. I've seen her in concert. She is really, really good. There's no question. Not what I would consider to be my favorite, but she bears a lot of similarity to Dolly Parton. Just a little thing, she gives away a lot of money. She works on things. She takes stands. They happen to be more liberal, which of course drives the right crazy. The other thing I was thinking about, talking about politicians, I remember that when Nixon was going to be impeached, I don't know if you remember that, when a couple of major senators, Barry Goldwater, nobody was ever more conservative than Barry Goldwater at the time. And they called him over to the House, and Nixon goes, "Oh, well, Mr. Barry, what are my chances in the Senate?" And I said, "Well, maybe 2 or at most 3 votes, Mr. President, and I'm not one of them." And we have that verified because, of course, it was taped. Could you imagine that today? It wouldn't happen. There was an opportunity for that because there's no question. I believed in my heart that Richard Nixon was the worst president ever. Not just in my lifetime, ever. There's historians who would argue that a couple of presidents prior to the Civil War were pretty bad too. But now Nixon looks great compared to what Donald Trump. I take Richard Nixon any day.
Well, that's what I'm talking about from the lead, where even back then, and when we did have a rift between the right and the left, but it usually meant 5 or 10% in terms of the budget. The Republicans won a little bit more in the military, and of course the Democrats won more in the social spending. But there was always this sensibility, like it's pretty clear that you don't kick an 80-year-old woman in the ass. We all know that's bad.
Well, Donald Trump doesn't know it.
But now he doesn't know that because he can.
And his supporters don't know it. You know, there are some Donald Trump supporters who just hate the Democrats. You know, I mean, and they don't really like Trump, but I can't vote for them, so I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. But let's look at Trump. We have
Sure.
Trump in his trials. I want to look at some of that this week, and then Bill Maher was a perfect introduction because then I want to talk about the craziness of Donald Trump. First of all, I'm tired of Donald Trump, but we might as well get used to it. Barring his death, because incarceration won't stop him, trials won't stop him.
Right.
He's going to win the Republican primary.
Right.
So short of death or some kind of physical incapacity, where he could no longer function, we're going to have Trump. So this week, of course, it was the second E. Jean Carroll trial. He had already been found guilty of raping and defaming her. But now she's taken him back to court. The court accepted it. And he's putting on quite a show up there. I don't know. I don't watch much of it, but I caught the one. I don't know if you saw that, Brian, where he was like, okay, they're doing something. First of all, court is supposed to be relatively a solemn affair. Okay, it's serious. You don't go to court. You may be innocent, you may be guilty, but you don't. When you get to court, there's a seriousness.
There's something called contempt. So
yes, and I don't know if you caught that. He was saying stuff like con job, witch hunt. I mean, he's doing that. That's what. Right. You're not going to influence. It's a judge. I mean, you're not going to win friends and influence people doing that.
It's not the Dale Carnegie method.
No, absolutely not the Dale Carnegie method. But here's the thing. That's part of Trump's plan. It's part of his persona and his plan. The persona is Donald Trump really does believe he is all that. He believes the rules don't apply to him. He believes that if somebody says no to him, they're persecuting him. Trumpian zone. It's true. And he also, they're coming down with the verdict pretty soon on his inflating the value of his property. He did this, $376 million. They could assess that, and he could lose his ability to do business in New York. Now, neither one of those is going to sway any of his supporters who are there now.
Right.
They've bought into this idea that he is aggrieved, and what's sad, Brian, is they're taking the fact that they keep charging him rather than he's beyond belief contemptible. They're taking it as proof that he's persecuted. So it feeds,
right.
And they believe that it is indeed, a witch hunt. So you got the Carroll trial, you got this one. Now, the one that I'm following, and I think it's sad. Again, this theme tonight, crazy thing. Okay, so in Georgia, he along with 17 others, I think, were charged with trying to reverse his defeat in that state. Now, there must be something there because 4 of the defendants have already pled guilty. You don't plead guilty to something you didn't do at that level, right? You just don't. But then we get the Fulton County District Attorney, Fannie Wills, and she appoints a special prosecutor by the name of Nathan Wade. And nothing wrong so far, right? And Nathan Wade, so far in that case, has been paid $650,000. Nathan Wade decides to get, or I don't know if he decided. Anyway, he's in divorce proceedings with his wife. And as part of all this, it comes out that apparently Miss Wills has a personal relationship, not just a professional relationship, with Mr. Wade, an attorney. And she is accused at this point or alleged, I shouldn't say accused because she's not hasn't been charged, of accepting gifts, including payments for 2 trips from Wade. Well, that doesn't sound real good, right? So she comes out at a church Sunday, and she talks about I've sinned, and I'm not, and she never really addresses the issue. So my problem is, will that blow up the Trump case? It
Well,
certainly will
this
delay it.
is right out of Roy Cohn. I mean, it's let's get to that personal level, destroy somebody,
But the fact is,
deflect.
if she did it, she was wrong.
Yes.
It's like, but it just gives more credence to Trump. Now, what some people on the left are saying is, again, as they did with the president of Harvard, she's a black and a woman, and there's no question. There's no question. We are not a post-racist society. We're not a post-sexist society. Donald Trump is the poster boy for white whatever, but that doesn't provide really an excuse for inappropriate behavior. And indeed, if this was the case, she could have named anyone else, right? And there's also some question about how active he was. He'd never really had a case like this, apparently. So there's certainly some smoke there. Now, it's not always where there's smoke, there's fire. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. And really, if that happens, like, wow, maybe Trump is the Teflon Don.
Well,
Things
not
just
only
don't
that,
see
because I did want to. This kind of ties into what you're
right.
saying. And again, I'm not making excuses for her, but I'm just saying this is the kind of thing that Trump does. This is the way they operate now, and it's very effective. He wouldn't do it if it wasn't effective. But what I'm going to ask you is a question
Go ahead.
that's very difficult to answer.
Go ahead.
Do you think he knows something about the Supreme Court that gives him
No,
this bravado
no,
in
no.
courtrooms to do what he wants to do? Does he
I think.
know
I
that
think.
somewhere they're going to just
Well,
bail him out?
I think he believes, in his way of working, that Judy. I don't disagree with that. I personalize her business. The problem is, and I'm going to speak to Donald Trump in a moment. The allegation goes beyond the person. She can screw anybody she wants. She can do whatever she wants. But once the money exchanges hands, right, and is brought into the government, then that's the problem. Again, let me point out, it's just allegations right now. Supposedly, there's mention of this in the divorce proceedings that are sealed. I think they're going to unseal them. We'll see, Judy. I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying we shall see. But if that was, I think, as a really well-respected, well-known legal expert said this week, that she should probably just remove herself at this point, simply because it would be better. However, when she does that, Brian, how long's the delay going to be? Again, you've got all this stuff building up. So your question again about the Supreme Court. Let's get back to them. I think Trump believes that since he appointed those three, they should.
And that is
rule
the
and he
finish
should-
line.
for all of this, absolutely. So we're right back to 5-4 at best going into anything with Roberts, if it would, make him appear to.
And he's got canon on his side. There, that goes without saying in the document.
Well, I mean, she's as bad as his attorney that he has now. So does he? I mean, I think he anticipates that. Is there a written agreement anywhere? No. I
Does
mean,
it have to be? That's the point. I mean, I
Well-
know this is normally a reach, but as we've been talking about Bill Maher. These are
Oh, no.
crazy times. I don't
Well-
trust anybody on the right wing of the Supreme Court.
Well, why would you?
Right.
Unless
So
you're right way yourself.
and Bill Maher, George Carlin has always said, when you have a coincidence of once, you don't need a formal conspiracy. So
Right.
my point
But-
is that I think he has an understanding, kind of like a wife of a mob boss, There's an understanding.
Well, I think he believes it. I don't know that they will exhibit it. They have ruled against him a little bit. Yes, Judy can and should be removed from the bench, no question. But
She's
the
just
trial,
impossible. That
from
woman.
from a personal input, I think I'm going to get a birthday gift, Brian, from an unusual source. On March 25th, now said, it doesn't mean it'll take place then. Trump will go on trial for allegedly paying a porn star $130,000 as hush money, as he was running the campaign, figuring if this gets out, I'll be in trouble. And we all know who that porn star
And he
was.
wasn't using his own money, too. That's the thing. He wouldn't pay for that out of his own money. He wants you to pay for it.
And we all know who that person is. And Stormy Daniels announced this week that indeed she does plan to testify in that trial. If that, I really, I didn't watch every day of OJ. I haven't watched every day of a trial, but I guarantee you, if she testifies, I will be watching that day. Now, again, it will come back to this. People miss the point. The point is not that Donald Trump had sex with Stormy Daniels. The point is not that he was married when he had sex with Stormy Daniels. The point is not that she spanked him with a magazine she says she spanked him with a magazine with his picture on it. None of that. What matters is he paid $130,000 as hush money. That's the point. And see, with Trump, all these things are woven so deeply that people sometimes miss the main point, right? I mean, we don't because we know but I'm saying people who can support him or people who aren't sure come up with an obvious position. Who cares who Donald Trump fucks? I don't, except when it breaks the law. And he did break the law. The person who delivered the money, Michael Cohen, his attorney, says he broke the law. Yeah, did not have sex with that woman. Be interested to see. That's interesting. What would happen to Clinton now? Post-Trump. We'll never know. We may find out a little bit more as more details leak out about the Jeffrey Epstein visits. But even there, Brian, the left say, Bill Clinton wouldn't do that. Yes, he would. I think. I believe it. Well, Donald Trump wouldn't do that. And the interesting thing is Trump did distance himself. But that doesn't mean he didn't, that doesn't mean he wasn't there before. So we've got Trump's trials. They're going nowhere fast. Well, that's true. But again, Anthony, that's the point I'm making. Nobody should. But the point is not who he did it to or what he did. The point is that he paid $130,000.
Right. But here's
to
my
cover
point.
It up.
I think that the average Trumper probably would respect that logic, that he's guilty of taking campaign funds, paying for sex. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I think their hatred for the fact that this country is changing in color, the fact that
no question.
You have a Democrat as president, the fact that we had an African American as president, I think that just roils them so much that no matter what he is or what he stands for is their ticket for the 1950s.
And I'm going to take it a step further. I think they like what he does. I really do. He speaks against the people they hate. They hate Judy Washington. They don't even know her.
Right.
Okay. Well, I think there's the quote of the night. We'll give that to Max. We can shut down now, Brian. That says it all right there. Mm-hmm. But it's nice. Like I said, sometimes we can still laugh about it. But kind of Bill Maher saying in stage, the weird. Now, just let's look at some of the things in Trump's world this week. Okay, so we have Iowa, right? He wins Iowa, 51%, closest 30 percentage points above everybody else. As I said, if Nikki Haley can't upset him, and I don't see how she can, she may stay in the race. But DeSantis is toast. He's done, and there's only two. There's only two candidates left, DeSantis and Nikki Haley, to oppose Trump. Everybody's jumping on ship now. Senator Scott endorsed him, dropped out, and endorsed Trump.
And he's a strange one too. It sounds like he wants to be vice president.
Well, there's a lot of movement now in that way.
Well, they
I
say
think
that
I
the
get
Stefanik is the one that he wants, but who knows?
who Stefan. Well, probably there. Uh, yeah, I'm going to go with that, Judy. You want to make sure you tune in next week, or at least watch it later, because I've got a whole thing on that next week. Trump and God. But let's look at this. So Iowa, we get that. Now, did you see his last message? Did you see that or hear it? Uh, the last message he gave before as people are going off to vote.
I know he said that something to the effect that even if you are
I'll
going to
go it for you.
die
Yeah,
or something
yeah.
like that,
Here's
get out and vote.
here's an exact quote. You can't sit home. If you're sick as a dog, you say, "Darling, I gotta make it." Even if you vote and then pass away, it's worth it. What? What? He's saying that I'm important enough for you to die for.
And
Wow.
2,000 years from now, on the December 25th, we're going to have a holiday named after Trump. That's what can happen.
Um, it can happen. Well, I'm not going to go there. Let's
I didn't
continue.
want to be facetious, but I had to be,
No, no,
because
no,
that's
no,
how
no,
things
no, no.
work in this world.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I'm not so sure. Well, never mind. We'll save that as we get closer.
And that would be, it must say the planet should just go if that will be the case. Right. If you knew that was going to happen, you'd certainly say, right, push the button. You know,
we've got the mystery of the red on his hands this week too. So there's a picture of him holding up his hands, right? And there's these really not so good looking red marks.
Right.
Now, they could be anything, right? I mean, you don't know. But the thing is, whatever he says they are, they're probably not, because he never told the truth about anything else. But of course, people jump on that immediately and begin circulating that he has hand herpes, because people want to believe that really despise him. Now, I don't know what it is. They've said it could have been from a fall. It could have been from golf. There's any number of things. Could have been a rash. But I a guy I respect, and I hope he did this tongue in cheek or doesn't really believe it. James Carville. I really think he's a political genius in terms of running things behind campaigns, and he's so to a lot of foreign countries now. He doesn't do work anymore in America. He works in foreign countries, so maybe he's gone over the deep end too. But anyway, he comes right out and says, "I know it's secondary syphilis." Huh? Then he mentioned the clap, but clap is gonorrhea. But this isn't a presidential race. We're talking about this kind of stuff. All right? The other one that there was wild speculation on Trump, and I have no idea what it meant, at his mother-in-law's funeral, which he tried to ask for a postponement in court so he could go, but he went, yeah, there's his hands, but he went to a campaign rally and it didn't bother him. But anyway, there's a picture of, he goes to get in the limo of his wife, Melania, and she holds out her hand, and he doesn't get in the limo. Doesn't get in the limo. Now, what was that about? Now we got all this speculation because obviously, I think Melania would be in the news no matter what for being married to Donald Trump, but she's kind of disappeared. His family has kind of disappeared, with the exception of Don Jr. says something inane every once in a while. But what was that all about? And should it affect the election? Probably not. But he's this big person in the news. And then, just as the weekend comes and New Hampshire hits up, have you been following? Now we've got a big movement, even in the Republican Party, that now we have two candidates suffering dementia: Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Up until now, Trump's pretty much been able to avoid, even though there's only 5 years difference, I guess, in their ages, because Biden's 82, Trump is 77. And he does this thing where he talks about January 6th. And 3 times in that, he identifies Nancy Pelosi as Nikki Haley. Now, once maybe it's a slip. I don't know. You know, First of all, anybody says it's by design. You know what though? I'm saying no. It might well be. It might well be. Just get her name out there doing something. But he knows. But that's not what really bothers me about that statement. In that little statement, it was very short sentence. Well, um, he made two false claims in addition to misidentify um, Nancy Pelosi as Nikki Haley. He said in that statement, we offered her 10,000 people. He said he made a recommendation for troops. He never did that. Okay, never did it. We offered 10,000 people. He offered them 0 people.
Right.
And then claims the evidence of that was destroyed. No, 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 no. So I guess what I'm trying to say, we have to get past this idea of Trump being crazy. He may not be. I think he is, but he may not be. But and focus on what's really important. Forgive about, having sex with a porn star. Look at the $130,000 paid. Where'd the money come from? What was the intent? Why? Get beyond the fact that he may or may not be suffering from advanced age or dementia, and look at the lies. He did not summon. He did not offer troops. He did not summon 10,000.
No, not at all. 10,000. He did people. Nothing to stop that.
Well, he did dance. Well, he didn't stop. Maybe he thought his dancing would stop it. I don't know. They did have video of that, his people in there. Now, the question becomes though, what has to change between now and November? Well, there was some good news this week for Mr. Biden. The economy, at certain levels, it pretty much looks like we're going to avoid a recession or a deep drop. Stock market reached some high averages. But see, again, as I said before in the show, I don't know how much the stock market actually affects the majority of American people. Do you know any, you do you have any idea how many people are invested in the stock market? I don't. I don't
think
imagine.
The number is somewhere around 40%.
40%. So not even a majority,
right,
of people.
And the people like you and me who were, at least I'll speak for myself, who have teacher pensions. It's that type of investment is a lot different than traditional
I'm putting
investing.
all my money.
It is. Yeah. You just can't say I'll pull my money out. We are the floor there that protected the big investors because they knew that because of these big unions like the teachers unions have these investments, it couldn't go below a certain level, even if the stock market tanked, because we're forced to keep the money in there. So it's a certain way the teachers and the firemen and the police, whoever are part of these large unions, really do save these investors, and they kind of know it too. It's a cheat in a certain. Well, it's a cheat. So we're just small potatoes.
I guess it's good news. It looks like the government shutdown has been averted, but as you say, there's nothing really permanent. We get no money for the Ukraine. I think at least what I like about that, and what I like about what you're doing there is, a couple of things. I just think I can't think of anybody, maybe Charles Manson, I don't know, I'm being ridiculous, but I can't think of anybody who would be worse than Donald Trump that would have a legitimate shot for the presidency. And I don't think that, any candidate is going to be perfect for everybody.
Nor should we have a Pollyanna attitude. That's the way the world works. That's kind of the idea. You're talking about the craziness. Is Trump crazy or not? I think the bottom line is there's a flaw in logic. And when somebody has a flaw in logic, we're in big trouble. You and me, if your doctor makes a mistake, this guy has a flaw in thinking.
But don't you think it really is, logic has gone out. We have become a cult of personality. And that's really what we look at. I don't know how many Republicans really know the issues. I don't know how many Democrats really know the issues. A lot of people just say Joe Biden's too old to be president. Okay, what's the alternative? Somebody who's 5 years younger, right? Um, I really want to return to something I said earlier, and I think it's very important to understand. Trump is the modern candidate for modern times. Joe Biden is a candidate for times that have gone and probably will never return. I think it's wishful thinking on our
I would
part. We're
agree.
not going back to Walter Cronkite.
But
That's
it's the
done.
thinking American. This is going probably beyond the borders of the show, but is the thinking American a thing of the past? I mean,
Well, Brian, let me ask you something. Do you really think it ever was a thing? I mean, it's sort of like when it's my argument. It's not with you, but what I'm
there's a
saying is something like
certain reasonableness.
was there
Well, there were problems. So look, there were a lot
was
of
the
people that were
Civil
going to
War
vote for Lindbergh. I mean, that's a problem.
was slavery reasonable? Was Lindbergh
No,
reasonable? Was in turn Japanese Americans reasonable? Was the Civil War reasonable? Was the age conflict in
you're
Vietnam?
right. I mean, okay, that you
But
make a good
but
point.
but I think part what did function better then, for the most part, which I guess you could say with the exception of the Civil War, um, government functioned better. I think there was more a sense of decorum, right? And again, I'm the last person, man. I'm the last person to do this, but I saw a statistic this week that really surprised me. Now, I'm not saying it's accurate. I saw it. Only 10% of Americans going to work now are wearing suits and ties. Now, that just again a relaxing of America. It's not a bad thing, right? Necessarily. We're not going to stop it though. We're not going back. I've joked a lot. I said I want to know the day. In history, everybody wants to change. I don't want. I just want to know certain days. I want to know the day at baseball games when fewer people had a tie on
Right.
than didn't. That's a change. Look at church. I'm not. I'm just saying things change and they don't go back. Yeah, I wonder. I wonder, Max, and you might. I would certainly defer to your expertise because you live in California. Gavin Newsom just strikes me as maybe a little bit too pretty. I don't mean that in a sexual. I'm just saying. I don't know. Again, we're all skeptical. Okay, we're all skeptical. I think Donald Trump has done that. Um, you know,
Well, that actually,
Fannie
we're
Willis,
getting to
Hillary.
psychology now when you're talking about
Yeah,
looks, and there, nobody's going to deny that, for example, that top 0.3% of humans, we're talking about the models and the
right.
famous actors and actresses, they are treated better, and they can just be born and look good and make it simply because they get the genes, they have the geometric face and all
Well,
that kind of thing happening.
oh yeah. I mean, there's
It's
been
not too much
count.
different than an athlete who can run a 9 second
I laughed about that
100-meter dash. I mean, I mean, not to say you don't train, but you have to be born with high twitch fibers, and
when
so few people that
I'm
have that.
I'm kind of laughing at that because I have a personal story about that. Um,
Did you run a 9 second
when my
100-meter?
no. But the good looks of what happens. My son Michael, when he was getting his doctoral degree, he was working with the Freakonomics group out of University of Chicago, right? And they sent him. They set up an experiment. They went out, and one of the experiments he was working on, the findings said that blonde-haired, attractive women would get more from door-to-door, requests than anybody else. I said, I could have told you that, the idea, but I mean, there's a whole. I mean, it's not something we just speculate. What you just said is true. Looks
Well, even
un.
Lenny Bruce talked about racism. You may remember, Dave, and those who are out there old enough to
Right.
know who Lenny Bruce was. He talked about racism in the South, and he has this dialogue with a racist, and he says, "Okay, and please don't take offense to this, folks. It's just what Bruce brought up. I don't think it's offensive, but he made a great point. So he goes up to the racist and he says, "Okay, you're going to live on this with a thought experiment. You're going to live on an island, okay, and you've got your choice. And we know you don't like African Americans, but when you have your choice, okay, now you can be with a woman." You do all the things that you do with a woman every night and whatever you enjoy. It's going to be this, but you've only got a choice of two women you can have. One is Lena Horne, and the other is Kate Smith. And he brought up a good point on two different levels. One, the racism, but the racist will take Lena Horne instead of Kate Smith because there's a certain
Are
thing
you
about
talking about?
looks.
Are you talking about Lenny Bruce or Thomas Jefferson? I
But
mean,
yeah, you see,
seriously.
that's
I
my
know. I
point.
mean,
It shows you the
look,
racism, but they'll make an exclusion for themselves because that person happens to be, you know, really hot.
whatever. Right. Right.
And this is, of course, what happened, of course, unfortunately, during slavery. It's sickening, but it brings up, whether it's looks or it's racism. You see how that works.
And you know what? Another thing that struck me this week, I was reading. I think it was a New York Times, New York Times article, and the writer was saying that, according to experts, about 50% of the country is not paying any attention to the election right now, and some of them will vote. That just boggles my mind. I mean, yeah, we do it. I do it because I love politics, or I like politics, or I just think politics is something to observe. The show, I mean, all this stuff. But I'm just, I mean, how can you not, with it being surrounded like that? So I mean, that's the group, I guess, that we have to look for. I mean, obviously, um, one of the things I think we have to do, and it kind of pains me to say this, but I'm going to say it. If you know someone who's going to vote third party, certainly they have the right to do that. But if they're a friend of yours, if you believe this to be true, as I do say, that's fine. But you realize you're voting for Donald Trump, right?
You
And that's
realize that
exactly
there are
no. It is if you're voting for Donald Trump, you're saying
conditions
you
that will
you're
occur because of what you've
you're
decided.
because of what and there'll be Cornel West is going to be in for the duration, uh, and others. Um, and again, that puts you in a precarious position of working against what you believe. I believe anybody who's eligible to run should run and has the right to run, and anyone has the right to vote for whomever they want. However, in this case, is I just think that's the reality of it.
Well, that's
If
why
you
they say that you should have instant runoff voting because
come on, Brian, they ain't gonna
it's not going to
gonna change.
happen. But I'm saying at least
See, and I mean we shouldn't have the electoral college, but we do, and it's not going to change. It's not going to change.
well, it's not going to
There's
change
not
now with the
there's not
Republicans in control.
there's not enough support. Okay, small states aren't going to allow it because it's the Senate should be revised. There's no way that Idaho should have the same number of senators as
Right,
Texas or
right.
California, but it's not going to change.
Dave,
Um,
may I cut in and ask you a
sure.
question because I know the time's running short here.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Go ahead.
Because we've been talking about the Republicans last week. They wanted to make an immigration deal because even Democrats
Mm.
are worried about immigration. But it sounds like now they're doing this bullshit where they say Trump doesn't want to have any deal, no matter what. In other words, they're saying Biden's saying, "I'm going to give you everything you want. You want to have the immigration deal, fine. We need to give money to Ukraine." And
Not going to
now
happen.
they don't even want to give him that because
Look,
it's considered a victory for Biden. So now this is the mentality of the
okay.
Republican Party, the
I know,
craziness.
and what they think Trump's going to build the wall that he didn't build when he had the 4 years
Mhm.
to build it. They think Mexico is going to pay for it since they paid not 1 cent for anything that was built then. Look, we have a problem with the border. Okay, we do. I mean, that's it all depends on, but it's become such a blown out issue that nobody will say really how bad it is. Okay, we know it's inhumane. Some of what they're doing, they're busing people to Chicago where the temperature is what -6, and they're busing from Texas. I mean, but there's got to be a better way. What we don't have now, Brian, is we don't have what we don't have, and we'll close it there. We don't have enough sanity. We have too much craziness. And Brian, as much as I would love to say it, I don't see sanity returning anytime soon, if it was ever here at all. And I can't fathom the craziness not increasing. in this time when Donald Trump, it appears, will be a candidate for president running against someone whose popularity right today indicates that Joe Biden can't win. That doesn't mean by November he can't. All right. And, it's not really a reality yet. It is for us. I mean, for me, it is. It's Donald Trump versus Joe Biden versus alien abduction, death, or incapacitation or incarceration. So, Mr. Maher, as much as I might not like him as a person, I didn't even before all of this, but I think he's onto something. But his question, can't we all be saying, no, it's not going to
It's not
happen.
going to happen. Well, maybe we have to do what Timothy Leary said and just tune in and turn out or tune out or
You
whatever.
can't, but you can't do that. I mean,
No, you
that's,
can't give up. That's giving
you
up.
continue. Like I said, I think, some of the things I want to start researching is from people, what can we really do? I mean, what can we? Okay, obviously you got the vote. I'm recommending tonight that as election goes, if you have friends, family who are not voting for Donald Trump, but not voting for Joe Biden either, and taking a third, just talk to them, not get mad at them, not argue, just see if you can convince them that that might not be in America's best interests, because if they vote for a third party candidate, and we don't even know what Manchin's doing yet, they still got that
Right.
one, that's talking about that. Robert F. Kennedy is in; he's not going anywhere. So there's some debate on how much he'll take from Trump and how much he'll take from Biden. But my guess is with the Kennedy name, if you're going to vote for Kennedy, you're voting for the Kennedy name, which he isn't. The family's disowned him practically
Right.
because of his crazy thing. So anyway, Brian, I don't think I don't think we're ever going to run out of things to talk
And
about.
this is the
Uh,
200th show tonight, by the way.
I know. Congratulations, Brian.
200th.
Because although I hang around here, everybody, just so you know, it really is was Brian's idea. It is Brian's show. I take full credit for the good shows, but the bad shows are definitely Brian's fault. Okay, last big question. Forget all this. Taylor Swift. We touched on Taylor Swift, which leads us to football, and the two Super Bowl teams will be.
Well, if I could push the right buttons, I'd say the Lions. What versus Kansas City, and the Lions win.
Okay, I'm going to go with. I would like to see the Lions win, uh, but I think it'll be Baltimore.
And San Francisco, right?
No,
San
Baltimore and the
Francisco's
Lions.
tied right now, 13-13 in the third quarter.
I rarely have rooted for the Green Bay Packers, but tonight I am. Um, and of course, in my mind, Philadelphia Eagles are still in the playoffs. Uh,
They should
they
be,
went
but
instead of one of
something went wrong.
1-6 of their last 7 games, they were 6-1, and they're still there. All right, everybody. Again, thanks for listening. If you were there tonight, thank you for commenting.
We had a lot of people here in the
Yeah.
chat already.
Well,
I mean,
but what I'd like to say is, we want to get as many comments in as we can because, like you said earlier, Brian, this is not our show. It's a
right.
show that we'd like to get people, talking about. It's a way to get together. I assume there is, more viewership tonight. I think it has something to do with colder weather. So maybe climate change. We could always do what CBS News did about Donald Trump. Well, he may not be good for the country, but he's really good for CBS News. Well, coal may not be good for the people out there, but if it keeps them in watching our show, I guess it's good for us. Bye, Brian. Bye, everyone.
Dave, thank you, everybody. And we'll see you, hopefully, touch wood, next week. Thank you, everybody. Really, thank you. We'll see you. Show 201. And that's that. From Bridgeton, New Jersey, signing out.